Now, as the renal artery approaches the kidney, before it even reaches the kidney, it begins to subdivide into these branches called segmental arteries. These segmental arteries are going to provide blood flow to certain regions of the kidney. This one to the superior pole. Okay? Here's the inferior pole. This is the medial part of the kidney. In fact, if you look at an anatomy text, they will give these segmental arteries names, and these are basically adjectives which reflect what region of the kidney they're traveling to. Inferolateral segmental artery. You won't need to know those. You just need to know that these are segmental arteries. Okay? Now, I'm going to point out something else. I draw two neighboring renal pyramids. Okay. If you take a single renal pyramid and 50% of the column on either side, as well as its superficial cortex up here, this region forms a lobe of the kidney. So a lobe is defined as a renal pyramid plus 50% of the column on either side, as well as its superficial cortex. Now, for this reason, as these segmental arteries divide and move between pyramids, these vessels that are between the pyramids are called interlobar arteries, which means between lobes. Interlobar arteries. When the interlobar artery reaches the base of the pyramid, it's going to take a 90-degree turn. Like this. So its branches are going to travel parallel to the base of the pyramid. These parallel branches like this are called arcuate arteries. Okay. So if we look up here, interlobar, these are arcuate. Arcuate are riding along the base of the pyramid. Now, extending toward the surface from these arcuate arteries, thousands and thousands of these little tiny branches like this that are called interlobular, not lobar. In this case, these are called interlobular arteries that are extending up toward the surface from the arcuates. So we go from renal artery to segmental arteries to interlobar to arcuate to interlobular arteries. That's a lot, huh? Okay. I'm going to blow up one of these little interlobulars. Here's the arcuate, and here's an interlobular. It's moving toward the surface of the kidney. Each interlobular gives off multiple tiny branches in either direction. These tiny branches are called afferent, with an A, arterioles. Afferent arterioles are branches of the interlobular arteries. We can't really see the afferent arterioles well on this drawing. It's not big enough. You can kind of see them a little bit. Not much. Okay. Now we can start talking really about the kidneys. We just need to know, we need to know that baseline information, that kind of foundation before we move forward. We think of the kidney as being one big old filter. But the truth is that each kidney is made up of a million tiny filters. And these tiny filters are called nephrons. Okay? So basically the nephron is the tiny structure that carries out the basic functions of the kidney. So the overall function of the kidney is really attributed to the functions, the sum of all the functions of these million little nephrons that are working their little nephron butts off. Okay? For those of you who have taken algebra, this is going to be easier. Nephron is equal to renal corpuscle plus renal tubule. This is kind of like an algebraic equation.
I don't know. I'm not a bad reader.
I knew you'd have a little trouble with this.
Yeah.
But I think the rest of you will get this. Well, you said you had some trouble with it. I'm just saying that I can help you with this.
Okay, good.
I can help you. I can send you to Mr. LaFrance.
He'll help me. He'll know this. He will know all about
Mr.
that.
LaFrance knows everything.
Yes, he
He
does.
does. He's good. I don't know what we'd do without Mr. LaFrance around here.
Okay.
Okay, so a nephron is equal to a corpuscle. Remember, the corpuscle is where the filtering occurs. And a renal tubule, this is where the processing of the filtrate occurs. So if you put the two together, you have a renal corpuscle. Okay. Let's go back to our arcuate artery. Draw a real big interlobular artery. And then I'm going to focus on a single afferent arteriole coming off of it. Okay? I'm going to just abbreviate this AA, afferent arteriole. Remember that everything to this side of the arcuate artery is part of cortex. Everything on this side is part of the medulla, but not oblongata. Okay? Now, that afferent arteriole is going to give rise to a little ball of capillaries. See how we can draw a ball of capillaries like this. It really doesn't look like this, but this is how I'll make a ball of capillaries. In other words, blood is going to flow around this ball of capillaries, and then it's going to come out through a structure called an efferent arteriole. This ball of capillaries can be called either a glomerulus or you can refer to these capillaries as glomerular capillaries. So the afferent arteriole gives rise to a glomerulus, a ball of capillaries, which then drains into an efferent arteriole. There's a lot of special stuff I have to say about this now. Glomerular capillaries are fenestrated capillaries. Have y'all ever heard that term, fenestrated?
Yes.
You know, most of the capillaries within our body are what are called continuous capillaries, meaning that there's a very small intercellular cleft that sits between adjacent endothelial cells. Fenestrated capillaries have more openings or windows that make these capillaries well suited for the process of filtration. Because filtration is a process where fluid is being pushed under the influence of some pressure through openings. So in this way, it's filtered. Okay? So how can I show that these are fenestrated capillaries? I'll put some extra little holes in them like this. See what I did? I've created fenestrated capillaries so that as blood is percolating through, what do you think is happening? Water and smaller solutes within that water, because remember, plasma is 93% water. Okay, so water and smaller solutes are being filtered out. Okay, what's driving that fluid out? Well, it's the hydrostatic pressure, the pressure within the capillaries. Okay, and so once water and solutes, most of these are smaller molecules, are filtered out, they become part of what's called filtrate. Now, how does it collect? Well, there's a cup-like structure that's going to surround this ball of capillaries. It looks like this. All right, this cup-like structure, you can either call it a glomerular capsule, or the term that's more commonly used is a Bowman's capsule. So what's going to happen is fluid and solutes are going to pass out through these openings, these fenestrations, and what leaves the bloodstream becomes part of the filtrate that's formed by the structure here. So these little dots represent solutes within the water or the filtrate. So filtrate is being formed. Blood is being filtered within the structure. Now, if we combine the glomerulus plus the Bowman's capsule, these two structures together represent a renal corpuscle. So this renal corpuscle is a major component of the nephron. So I could say a corpuscle, this would be another equation, a renal corpuscle is equal to a glomerulus plus Bowman's capsule. And we're doing some more math here. JJ, I'll set you up with this little branch later. A renal corpuscle is equal to glomerulus plus Bowman's capsule. Okay. So filtrate is formed within the renal corpuscle. These renal corpuscles are only present within the cortex of the kidney. They are not found in the medulla. Okay? Now, earlier I said that within the renal tubule, this filtrate is modified. It's processed. So let's talk about the components now of the renal tubule. From the corpuscle, this filtrate is going to pass into the renal tubule. The proximal part of the renal tubule is very convoluted, meaning it has a lot of curves and turns. And we call this part of the renal tubule the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT, the proximal convoluted tubule. Now, notice that the proximal convoluted tubule extends down to the base of the pyramid. I didn't draw this. I don't have enough whiteboard to fully demonstrate what happens next, but the PCT is then going to carry that filtrate into the medulla, where the tubule forms a little tube-like structure like this. Okay. This U-shaped tube within the medulla that includes this descending limb and this ascending limb. This is called a loop of Henle. Lupus So the filtrate is going to pass from the PCT down into the Lupus first down the descending limb, and then back up through the ascending limb. Okay, so down here, it's a little hairpin turn. Now, from a physiology standpoint, from a functional standpoint, the part of the descending limb that's important for our purposes has a relatively thin wall. So oftentimes we'll call this part the thin descending limb of the Lupus family. And the important part of the ascending limb, look how it made it thicker, okay, has a relatively thicker wall. So we'd refer to this as the thick ascending limb of the Lupus family. You have already heard of the Lupus family. If any of you have worked in a hospital and have dealt with loop diuretics are diuretics that work within the Lupus family. Hence they're called loop diuretics. These would be diuretics like Lasix or Demodex or Bumex. Okay? Now, the filtrate is going to pass down the PCT, down and then back up the Lupus family, and then it's going to enter into a distal convoluted tubule like this, a DCT. Okay? All the while it's getting processed. So, the three major components of the renal tubule are the PCT, the Lupus family, and the DCT. This is where most of that processing occurs. Now, the DCT is going to take that filtrate and dump it into what's called a collecting duct. The collecting duct is going to collect filtrate from multiple DCTs along its pathway back down toward the renal papilla. So we'll have some other DCTs emptying into it as it carries that filtrate back down to the papilla